The sharp blade of my box cutter tore through the heavy cardboard, a sound that echoed unnaturally loud in the quiet living room. My mother sat on the sofa, hands clasped over her mouth, gasping for air. My father stared at the floor, his face a mask of ashen defeat. Neither spoke. I retracted the blade, slipped it into my pocket, and reached into the box. I pulled out a small wooden dollhouse with a faded green roof, placing it gently on their expensive Persian rug. It felt absurd, holding a toy, a memory, over their heads. Yet, when I finally told them the true cost of this vintage dollhouse, my father's eyes met mine, and I saw the dawning realization that he had just lost his house. To understand why I stood there, dismantling their lives over a child's plaything, we need to rewind exactly 72 hours. I'm a military logistics officer. For the past 2 years, my world had been an endless cycle of cargo manifests, supply chains, and the relentless heat of central Kuwait. The desert teaches you to crave the simplest comforts: working air conditioning, silence, the dream of your own bed. I landed in Oklahoma on an unexpected early leave, dragging my duffel bag up the familiar driveway of my childhood home. I hadn't called ahead. I yearned for the mundane comfort of walking into my old room and sleeping for a solid day. I turned the brass knob on my bedroom door. The air inside smelled of fresh paint and bleach, a sterile, unfamiliar scent. My duffel bag slid from my shoulder, hitting the hardwood floor with a heavy thud. My room was gone. Not rearranged, but obliterated. The oak bed frame, the bookshelf my grandfather built, the plastic bins holding my pristine action figures, the meticulous photo albums dating back to 3rd grade, the cedar chest where I kept my private letters, all vanished. The walls were painted an icy gray, and a single velvet guest chair sat starkly in the corner. They had stripped my history down to the drywall. Most people would have erupted. They would have stormed down the hall, woken their parents, and demanded answers. But you don't survive in global logistics by reacting to missing cargo. You track it. I stepped into the room, my boots clicking on the bare floor, a hollow ache settling behind my ribs as I scanned the empty space. My family didn't throw things away. My father, who complained about the price of gas and milk at every Sunday dinner, threw nothing away. Near the baseboard, caught on a stray carpet tack, was a crumpled square of thermal paper. I knelt, picked it up and smoothed out the creases. It was a FedEx freight label. Weight, 140 pounds. Shipping date, 3 weeks ago. Sender, Richard Hamilton, my father. Destination, a commercial address in Tulsa. My parents had boxed up my childhood, weighed it and shipped it out for cash while I was stationed 8,000 miles away. I didn't wake them. I folded the label, slid it into my breast pocket, and quietly closed the door. They wanted to treat my life like an inventory liquidation? Fine. I knew how to run an audit. The morning sun streamed into the hallway. I stood there, still in my travel clothes, processing. Military training emphasizes compartmentalization. Take a volatile situation, box it up. Deal with it when the environment is secure. My bedroom was gone. My history was shipped away. I filed that fact in a dark, quiet corner of my mind and walked downstairs to observe the people who had done it. The scent of imported coffee and cured meats hit me before I reached the kitchen. My parents stood around the dining room island, looking nothing like people who had spent the last 2 years complaining about inflation. The spread on the quartz countertop belonged in a luxury hotel suite. Platters of wild-caught smoked salmon, artisanal pastries on tiered silver trays, crystal flutes filled with fresh orange juice and champagne. My mother, Susan, wore a silk blouse. My father, Richard, a pressed linen shirt. They turned when my boots clicked on the tile. Abigail! My mother rushed forward, her arms outstretched, embracing me in a tight hug that smelled of expensive perfume. We thought we heard you come in late last night. Why didn't you wake us? I let her hold me, my arms loose at my sides. I was tired, Mom. I just wanted to sleep. My father clapped me on the shoulder, his smile wide, too wide. It reached his cheeks but stopped short of his eyes. Look at you, back from the desert. We're throwing a welcome home brunch. Jessica and Braden are on their way. I glanced at the lavish table. A spread like this easily cost upward of $400. Before my deployment, My father ran a local contracting business and would spend 45 minutes complaining about the rising cost of drywall screws. He drove a 10-year-old truck that needed a new transmission and clipped coupons. Now, he was pouring high-end champagne on a random Tuesday morning. I poured myself a glass of tap water and took a seat on a leather bar stool. "Mom," I said, my voice flat, "I noticed my room looks a little different." My mother didn't flinch. She picked up silver tongs and began arranging pastries. "Oh, sweetheart, yes, we meant to tell you. We decided to do some decluttering. You've been gone so long, and the house was just gathering dust. We donated all those old childish things to a local charity drive. A church in the next county was collecting toys for underprivileged families. We figured you'd want your old room to feel more like a mature guest space." My father nodded, taking a sip of his drink. "Kids outgrow things, Abby. It was time to clear the deck." I took a slow sip of my water, feeling the crisp edge of the FedEx freight label in my breast pocket, the label detailing a 140-pound overnight shipment to a vintage broker in Tulsa. My parents looked directly into my eyes, constructing a heartwarming narrative about underprivileged children while the tracking number for their lie burned against my ribs. "That was generous of you," I replied. "Which church?" My mother waved her hand, a practiced gesture of dismissal. "Oh, one of the ones down past the interstate. Richard handled the drop-off." The front door opened before I could press further. My younger sister, Jessica, walked in, followed by her fiancé, Braden. Jessica looked like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine, wearing a tailored white sundress and carrying a designer handbag that retailed for $3,000. Braden, in loafers and a watch that caught the kitchen light, had the slick, polished demeanor of a man who enjoyed spending money he didn't earn. "Abby!" Jessica shrieked, running over to hug me, thrusting her left hand forward to ensure I saw the engagement ring. "Look, we finally set the date." "Congratulations, Jess," I said. Braden gave me a crisp nod. "Good to see you back stateside, Abigail." Jessica bypassed the pastries and went straight for the champagne. "It has been a nightmare." The catering director, a man with impeccable posture and a practiced smile, approached our table. "Excellent choice, madame. I just need a card on file to authorize the upgrade surcharge before I pop the corks." My mother didn't hesitate. She turned to the designer handbag resting on the chair behind her, pulled out a sleek metallic rewards credit card. The specific card tethered directly to the home equity line of credit, the card drawing from the $85,000 fraudulent loan. She held the plastic out with 2 fingers, a gesture of supreme confidence. "Put the surcharge on this," she instructed, loud enough for the entire circle to hear. "And keep a tab open in case anyone needs a specialty cocktail before the afternoon is over." "Certainly, madam," the director said. He took the metallic card, placed it inside his leather folio, and turned toward the service corridor. I watched him walk away, every step toward the point-of-sale terminal echoing loudly in my ears, a steady drumbeat beneath the music of the string quartet. My mother resumed her conversation, laughing at a joke one of the women made. Jessica opened another gift. Braden sipped his drink. They were oblivious to the invisible countdown echoing through the ballroom. I leaned my shoulder against a cold marble pillar, taking another slow sip of my plain iced water. The trap was sprung. The bridge was gone. Now I just had to wait for the catering director to walk back into the room and hand my mother the pieces. The string quartet transitioned into a bright, upbeat tempo. The 50 guests in the ballroom hummed with the specific energy of a successful high society event. My mother stood near the cupcake tower, basking in the glow of her peers' validation. Jessica posed for another photo, holding a silver serving tray. Braden checked his phone, a confident smirk on his face. It took exactly 4 minutes for the catering director to return. He did not walk with the crisp, formal stride he used earlier. His posture was tight. His gaze stayed fixed on the floor. He carried the leather folio in his left hand, holding a wireless point-of-sale terminal in his right. He approached my mother's circle, navigating the affluent women with quiet urgency. "Excuse me, Mrs. Hamilton," he said, his voice lower this time, pitched to avoid the ears of the surrounding guests. My mother turned, holding her crystal flute. Yes, are the reserve bottles being prepped? The director glanced nervously at the women standing nearby. He leaned in closer. I am terribly sorry. Madam, but there seems to be a processing error with the payment method you provided. The terminal is returning a decline code. The word hung in the air between them. Decline. It's a violent word in environments built entirely on appearances. The women in the circle stopped talking. Their eyes darted toward the catering director, then back to my mother. The invisible hierarchy of the country club demanded flawless financial execution. A declined card was a tear in the canvas. My mother offered a sharp, brittle laugh. She swirled the remaining champagne in her flute. Oh, for heaven's sake. It's probably one of those automated fraud protection triggers. You know how these banks are. If you sneeze while making a large purchase, they freeze your account for your own safety. It's terribly inconvenient. But I suppose I should be grateful they monitor my high balance lines so closely. She opened the clasp of her designer handbag and dug past her lipstick. She pulled out a secondary debit card. This one tied directly to the checking account linked to the home equity line. Just run this one, she instructed, handing the plastic to the director. And tell the bartender to start popping those corks. We have guests waiting. The director took the debit card. He slid it into the wireless terminal resting in his palm. The small screen illuminated. The machine processed the data, communicating with the central banking servers. I watched the screen from my position near the marble pillar. I knew exactly what message the digital ledger was sending back. The account was locked. The outbound cash flow was severed. Major Reynolds and David Vance had fortified the vault. And no amount of country club posturing was going to breach it. The terminal emitted a harsh, low-pitched beep. The director stared at the screen. He looked up at my mother. The professional deference in his eyes was replaced by a distinct, cold calculation. He recognized the pattern. It was not a fraud trigger. It was a structural failure. I am sorry, madam, he said, his voice dropping another octave. This card is also declining. The system is displaying an administrative hold error. The primary account access is suspended. My mother's brittle laugh died in her throat. The affluent women surrounding her took a collective, subtle step backward, instinctively distancing themselves from the financial contagion. That is impossible, my mother snapped, her volume rising. I just checked the balance this morning. There is plenty of capital available. Run it again. You are using the machine incorrectly. Madame, I have processed both cards twice, the director replied, his tone hardening. The terminal is functioning perfectly. The hold originates from your financial institution. If you cannot provide a valid secondary payment method immediately, I will be forced to cancel the premium reserve upgrade and suspend the open bar tab. My father, Richard, appeared suddenly from the edge of the room. He had been standing near the coat check, discussing golf swings with another husband. He sensed the atmospheric drop in the room and rushed over, his face flushed. Susan, what is the problem here? He demanded, stepping between my mother and the catering director. True family responsibility requires profound emotional awareness. It demands that parents look at their children and recognize the unique individuals they are becoming. It requires the immense courage to say the word no when a child demands an excess that will ultimately ruin their character. My father and mother lacked that foundational courage. Instead of teaching my younger sister the value of hard work, the necessity of a budget, or the importance of humility, they insulated her in a fragile bubble of entitlement. They shielded her from reality. When the bill for that unchecked entitlement finally arrived in the form of a six-figure country club wedding, they did not teach her accountability. They decided to steal my identity to cover the deficit. They abandoned their sacred duty as protectors and willingly transformed into predators. Fairness within a family does not mean buying everyone the exact same gift. It means operating with a consistent baseline of integrity. When parents demonstrate that the rules of morality apply differently to different children, they sow seeds of deep, irreversible division. They teach the favored child that actions carry no consequences, creating an adult who shatters at the first sign of adversity. They teach the burdened child that their only value is their utility, creating an adult who must build a fortress just to feel safe. My parents sacrificed my cherished history to fund my sister's weekend party. They demonstrated through their actions that my past was merely collateral. But children possess incredibly long memories. We internalize the lessons our parents teach us through their behavior, not the platitudes written inside their holiday greeting cards. We watch what they do when the doors are locked. Parenting is essentially a long-term agricultural endeavor. You reap exactly what you plant. If you plant honesty, discipline, and mutual respect, you harvest a resilient family structure capable of weathering the darkest financial or emotional storms. If you plant deception, blatant favoritism, and financial manipulation, you eventually harvest a bitter, toxic crop. My parents spent decades cultivating a sprawling garden of lies. They watered it with stolen credit and pruned it with relentless gaslighting. When the storm finally broke over our heads, they had no deep roots to hold them steady. The federal charges, the canceled wedding, and the bank foreclosure were simply the natural, inevitable harvest of their own decisions. I own the house now. I walk through the quiet, empty rooms and listen to the silence. I look at the faded indentation on the carpet where the expensive living room sofa used to sit. I think about the countless generations of families who try to build their entire lives on similar illusions. We live in a society that, too, often rewards the loudest voice in the room. A culture that idolizes the superficial markers of wealth while ignoring the quiet, steady drumbeat of integrity. But when the lights go out, the catering staff leaves and the audience goes home. The only thing that remains is the raw truth of who you are behind closed doors. We share these narratives because the truth often feels incredibly isolating when you are the only person in the room willing to see it. Breaking generational cycles of manipulation requires an iron will and a community of support. If you are navigating your own complex family dynamics, if you are learning to set unbreakable boundaries, and if you are fighting to protect your own hard-earned peace, you belong here with us. Take a moment to subscribe and follow the Aura Vengeance channel. We are building a dedicated space for people who understand that true justice is just the natural result of standing your ground. Drop a comment below and share your own experiences with our community. I stood on the front porch of the house I bought back and watched my mother drive away for the final time. She looked so small, fragile, and utterly defeated. I felt a brief, quiet flicker of sorrow. It was not sorrow for the woman who forged my name on a federal document. It was sorrow for the mother I always wished she had been. She spent her entire life desperately chasing an illusion of a perfect, wealthy family, never realizing she was holding the very matches that burned it to the ground. You can spend your whole life polishing a mirror to make sure you look pristine to the neighbors outside. But eventually, the neighborhood sleeps, the sun sets. And you have to look into that glass yourself. And you are the only one who has to live with the face staring back.